I've decided to make this the last lecture of the series. There's a number of things we haven't implemented yet, namely actually winning the game and deciding who's won. That's actually not a very difficult thing to do, nor is it very interesting or have anything to do with the composition API or testing, so I'm going to leave that one as an exercise for now. One other feature I would like to highlight, or one other kind of bug we may potentially have, is to do with undo and redo. If I go ahead and make some moves, and then I undo it, and then I try and make a different move that's different to my historical one, we get some very strange behavior. If I click in the top left-hand counter here, we're actually going to replay history in that order, which I guess kind of makes sense. We're just moving forward through history, and those moves have already been decided. If we continue playing, however, we get some very strange behavior. You can see here, it's actually wiping out all of our historical moves from where we undid till, and then making new moves, and then you get some even more strange behavior if you continue playing. It depends on how you'd like to approach this. By undoing and then making a new move, we're actually changing history, we're diverging, so we have multiple different branches, and you have to decide what the correct functionality would be to be here. One potential way to handle this would be just deleting everything in the future and considering this to be a new game and then updating history in that fashion, or something like that. My original intention with the undo redo feature was just to replay games and see what happened as opposed to actually changing the outcome, so I'm not going to bother fixing this feature for now. I'm just going to leave it how it is, but it would be a good exercise to go ahead and update this depending on how you see this feature working. One other exercise I'd like to leave with you is to write a few more tests, namely the one to do with this mutation here. We actually changed this to be using JSON parse, JSON stringify to fix a bug, and that was our invalid history, and we didn't write a test for that. So what you probably would like to do to make sure this doesn't happen again is head over to your spec file, and you would probably want to add a test, most likely inside of this make move function here. What you would like to do, instead of just making an assertion against the final state here, we actually should probably make an assertion against the entire historical state to make sure they're all the same, and that would help us to catch that reactivity bug that we introduced as well. One other final note I'd like to highlight is how tightly we've actually coupled ourselves to Vue. If we head back to our game logic here, you can see everything has got to do with refs and reactive and all that kind of thing. We've very tightly coupled ourselves to Vue's reactivity system. This is not necessarily a bad thing, however, if you would like to be a bit more I think a best practice in my opinion is to try and keep your logic as separate as possible from your UI layer, and that includes your reactivity system. For example, if you worked at a very large company that made tic-tac-toe games professionally, and you decided you wanted to move away from Vue for whatever reason, you wouldn't be able to do it very easily with this implementation. Everything is very tightly coupled to Vue. This might not seem like a problem now because you're happy with Vue, but you never know in the future. For example, if 10 years ago we'd made our entire application using jQuery and based around tic-tac-toe, we'd probably have a lot of problems nowadays. One, a lot of people don't want to work with jQuery because it's very difficult to test, and it's kind of, a lot of jQuery projects tend to grow into these big hairy legacy projects that no one can work on. And the other problem is, do you really want to couple yourself to a UI framework in the first place? A UI framework is really just a way to express a business problem, and they should probably stay separate as much as possible. So another good exercise would be to try and extract all of this logic out and remove any references to Vue, specifically any references to value, and make this entirely functional. I'm going to actually make another series in the future and show you how you can do that, and that's actually a good exercise not only in functional programming, but also in separation of concerns. And that's something I do talk about more in my book, Design Patterns for Vue.js, which is something you can check out in the link in the description to this video. Anyway, that brings us to the end of this series, and I will see you next time.